I'm Nicole Silver. I lead marketing at Volta, which, for anyone who's unfamiliar, is an electric vehicle charging network and a digital media network. And I'm thrilled to be here with Leslie, who I'll let introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. I don't know if we want to be before or after lunch, but I think after lunch must be better. We will continue the trend of food and talk about mayonnaise. But yes, I'm Leslie, work at Unilever, leading the charge digitally, comms-wise, for our nutrition and ice cream. So brands like Hellmann's, Knorr, Breyers, Klondike, Popsicle, Good Humor, I could go on. Hopefully you've tried my products. Yes? Okay, we're going to keep this interactive, so please plan on participating. Yeah, I could talk forever about other things I've done, but we'll get to that.
So we'll dig in. We're going to let the anticipation build for when we get to the mayonnaise, so stay tuned. First, let's talk a little bit about your career, Leslie. You've had a diverse set of roles in your 16-plus year career at Unilever. Can you tell us a little bit about how the different experiences have shaped your career as a marketer?
Of course. So many ways to answer that. I like to start with saying I got paid to try new things. And I started out in the mid-2000s when CPG, brand management, was a very linear path. You do an operational job, which means you get to talk to customers and you have to know math. Maybe you get media if you're lucky. And my first brand was Klondike, very limited. Got to go to a lot of NASCAR events. Then you get to do comms and innovation, which would be, oh, cool, you come up with new products, get to talk to R&D, maybe make a commercial. I did both of those jobs in ice cream, and it was great. But what happened over time, the digital evolution, the digital revolution, thinking about lean startup, new brands, startup brands, how we think about data, all of those topics became so prevalent in marketing. And I started raising my hand for, well, can I take on learning about the digital ecosystem, and how do we think about social, and how do we think about design for channel? We have this Amazon business. What are we doing with it? And so I'm lucky that I've gotten to try a lot of things, and I've taken a very linear career path and tried to turn it into something fun and different, which at this point means a lot of scary things because the world of marketing is pretty crazy. But at the most part, I'd say I've gotten to try a lot of new things, and I still got paid to do it.
It's pretty awesome. What advice do you have for marketers who are on that career journey themselves?
I think you have to accept that change is literally everything around us, including your career. And there really are no linear paths anymore to what I just shared. And if you're open to change, and for the record, I really am not. I've had to have a lot of coaching on how to be open to change. But if you accept change as a mentality and a mantra, I think you get a lot further because there's just no standard answer anymore. And in a lot of ways, that's a good thing, because if you are passionate about something like digital marketing, social, you can do that as a career. I have a young employee right now, came kind of as a digital generalist, and she's like, I really just want to understand creator-led content. So we made her a creator-led influencer job, and she's killing it because she loves it, and she's expanding into that space. So I think you can create your own path, but you have to be open to change just being a constant.
I love that. And from our conversation prepping for this, I can tell how focused you are on the consumer. Everything you've said has been based on the consumer, and our consumers are changing so fast. Mm-hmm. How can you be a marketing leader if you can't think about change and pace change along with them? So to dive in a little bit, Unilever has a really long-standing tradition as a purpose-led organization. And you've done some pretty incredible campaigns. So can you tell us a little bit about a specific campaign or campaigns where purpose-driven messaging had a big impact for consumers?
Sure. This is where we start to talk about mayonnaise. Just letting everyone know. I have to poll the audience. Who is a mayonnaise consumer? Okay. Above household standards in America. Penetration of mayonnaise is about 78, 80%, which maybe that was about it. I was up late watching the football game last night, so I'm not sure if I counted your hands properly. So mayonnaise. I want to talk about mayonnaise and purpose because Unilever is a very long-standing company that does purpose, and I was lucky enough to work on the Dove brand for almost 2 years, which is the epitome of purpose. And I can tell you, I was a young marketer working on ice cream on Klondike when Dove and purpose really came to life the way it did. And it's kind of weird when you're sitting on Klondike and everyone's like, well, what's Klondike's purpose? And you're like, chocolatey goodness. Ice cream, tastiness, like that is a purpose in its own right. And so I tell that story because a brand like Hellmann's, a wonderful mayonnaise brand, #1 in America, we had a journey on purpose of, well, what does it going to be, and let's be clear, we want to be relevant to consumers. Purpose isn't something you can slam down someone's face. It has to be simple, it has to be clear, it has to be native to the product. So on Hellmann's, and I will not take credit for this because I was working on Dove and ice cream when they built purpose for Hellmann's, but this idea of food waste popped up. 40% of Americans waste food every year. 43% of that food waste is in people's own homes. 43%. That is a lot of food. And a stat that I continue to hear about is there are about 20% of Americans at some point will be in need of food. So if we're wasting over 40 and there's 20, we have plenty of food to feed those people. And so Hellmann's has gone on a mission to understand what that looks like. And I'm proud of this work, and I've only been working on it the last year, and I've been deploying it in media and comms. But it's really about taking something like Hellmann's and putting it with stuff that's in your fridge, like rotisserie chicken that you got at Costco 4 days ago and it said it's going bad. Or you've got some fried broccoli that you just saw, it looks pretty gross sitting there, but hey, with Hellmann's and some chicken, it could be better. And it's as simple as Hellmann's saying, we're gonna take stuff you've got in your fridge, we're gonna make it good, and we're gonna give you a meal. And so you don't waste it, and we just made it taste good with Hellmann's. It's that simple. And that is a message that is inherently purpose because it's about doing good for the world, it's about less waste, and it actually drives usage of our product. That is, to me, the simplest type of purpose and why I'm proud to work on this campaign because we just do something that's basic, inherent to what you do at your house every day, and it literally saves you money because you're not throwing away that Costco chicken. That was only $4.99 to begin with, but still. So that's kind of where I am on purpose today. And again, proud of it because it's not asking for major behavior change. It's asking for you just to take what you have and make the most of it.
And I know in my role, I'm not a spokesperson. I'm not paid for this promotion. But I will say that a couple weeks ago during Climate Week in New York, I happened to grab the Hellmann's Playbook, which is essentially, before I knew about this, a set of different recipes and ways to use Hellmann's in your kitchen with leftovers you already have. It's pretty cool. I recommend checking it out.
Thank you.
It was very cool to see. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up a question about sustainability, given Unilever's leadership in this area. So can you help me understand what is regenerative agriculture, and how does that mesh with the purpose-driven messaging that you just talked about?
Regenerative agriculture is a very scary topic. I don't really want to stand up here and give a TED talk on regenerative agriculture, but I'll lead you and tell you a secret. We're still trying to figure out how to tell consumers about it because regenerative agriculture is a huge part of how Hellmann's soybeans are cropped, harvested, grown, and the world is in many crises right now, but regenerative agriculture is meant to help one of the biggest agriculture crises in the world, which is that our food is becoming less sustainable, we're running out of sources for food, and again, I'm not gonna go down a rabbit hole here because I am a marketer, not a scientist, but what I do know is Hellmann's and nutrition's commitment at Unilever to try to make those farmers' lives a little bit easier. Because if I can make the farmers in Iowa have a little bit better crop, then I get better soybeans and I can make Hellmann's for the rest of time. And right now, regenerative agriculture is meant to help farmers have a better crop at the end of the day. And so I don't have a great answer. And like I said, we're trying to figure out how to talk to consumers about this because Hellmann's has committed some pretty significant stuff along with other Unilever businesses. And I want to tell you about that. I want to tell consumers that when you actually buy Hellmann's, you're getting a company that truly believes in the farmers. But that's a tough message in a world where we see messages all the time on social media that range from, you know, some sort of mascara to make your eyes look big all the way over to a children's shoe. If you saw a regenerative agriculture message in that feed, you might not react to it well. So we're working on how to tell that story, but in the end, it's a commitment Unilever has, Unilever Nutrition has, and I personally have as a comms leader in our business.
Let's shift gears a little bit to retail media.
Boo, just kidding.
It'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. Retail media ad spend will hit $45 billion this year, an increase of 20% since 2022, according to eMarketer. While this is a big increase, we're still in the early days, or early innings, if we want to pick a sports reference, so to speak. What has your experience been with retail media, and any best practices or observations you'd like to share with the audience?
So I'm a Brewers fan, so my baseball season's over, so let's pivot to football, which I had to buy this week as a Packer fan, so I'm actually feeling quite stable today. It's been a rough couple of weeks as a Packer fan. That being said, retail media, I booed because it's not that this is not one of the hottest and most important topics. It's because I don't think anyone has cracked it yet. And I think if anyone has, please raise your hand. I'm happy to pay you in jars of mayonnaise what the solution is. I really do think we are starting to crack it. We are testing, we are learning, we are having conversations, we are talking to retailers. At Unilever, of course, we have huge relationships with major customers. We're trying. Every single day. We're investing in people, we're investing in specialists, and we've absolutely made progress on what retail media looks like. But in the end, it's about getting a message to a consumer in the right moment, and whether I do that with retail media or I do that with linear television in some cases, it has to be the right message and it has to be on brand. And that's where we keep coming back to as Hellmann's and Knorr and ice cream is make sure it's the right message at the right time. So that's my smart answer. And I encourage everyone to keep talking about it. I think this is where, as an industry, the more talking and communicating we do on best practices, on sharing, the better we're going to be, because I really don't think anyone has fully crafted it. And again, my offer for mayonnaise stands if you have.
Any takers?
We have a new sriracha, spicy mayo, if anyone's interested in spicy.
Very trendy. So thank you for pivoting us to football because you really set us up for the next topic. Yeah. So Unilever's Super Bowl ad with John Hamm, Brie Larson, and Pete Davidson for Hellmann's Mayo was pretty awesome. How many people in the room saw that earlier this year?
Good.
Pretty good. As we start to think about Super Bowl 2024, how do you take advantage of cultural moments like the Super Bowl to amplify marketing efforts and really insert your brand into the conversation your consumers are already having?
Any excuse to talk about football. That's really why I work on Hellmann's. But I will say that's partly true, partly not true. I'm a huge football fan, as I've stated 5 times already. But football is actually super relevant to Hellmann's, super relevant to sports. And I think pop culture is going to be on any marketer's radar. Anyone in this room that's in marketing has probably had a brief of be more relevant, insert yourself in pop culture. No kidding. Like, I joke sometimes with my more junior team members. I'm like, guys, how do we make this unique to Hellmann's? Like, I don't want to see a brief that could literally be any brand that we know in the space. And for Hellmann's, Super Bowl and football has become a huge part of our brand, our team, because if you think about football and tailgating, parties, occasions, there's a good chance you have a dip. The dip might be made with Hellmann's. So we really think of natural ways to bring Hellmann's into the story, and Super Bowl was that for us. And we wanted, one, to have a big platform to talk about our food waste message. So in 2021, we pioneered, Hellmann's in Super Bowl at that time was right out of COVID. Are you kidding me? Like, you're asking for $10 million to go do what? But in the end, we wanted to join. 100 million people are watching Super Bowl. It is a moment to have that conversation with your consumer. They're not going to call it a conversation. They're going to call it a fun commercial to watch. But we really wanted a platform to start telling our food waste mission. In addition, it just got us off on this great journey of football is a great space to talk about mayonnaise and ways to use mayonnaise. So for us, pop culture was sort of the catalyst, but it was really about putting the brand in the right place at the right time. And as time has gone on, we just partnered with the SEC. We're doing a bunch with college football to bring that season forward because in the South, especially, tailgating, one of the hottest things to do all the time. So again, join the moments that are real. Don't make your consumers work harder than they have to. Plus, we just taste good in buffalo chicken dip. It's that simple.
Awesome. We've got a couple minutes for questions. Any questions from the audience?
Highlight, and I'll give you an example. There was a CMO I spoke to who tried to replicate the Hess truck, right, and the success that had, and it failed miserably. And he talked about having 100,000 of his own trucks basically in storage for 9 years before he can get rid of them. Any interesting stories from things that you've tried that you can kind of entertain us with?
Like a product launch or a campaign?
You said you tried lots of things, but digital marketing, products, etc.
I've had a lot of failed commercials, but those were because when you shoot Klondike commercials in Africa and you're trying to make a life-size Klondike bar on the side of an African roadside, it doesn't really go well. I've definitely had lots of failures, and I'm a huge fan of fail fast, pivot quick, and the mentality of iteration. I would say this is a little bit more serious, but Unilever went through this era of lean like a startup, where we pretended to be a startup. And I gave the company credit for encouraging us to think differently. Don't go and test an asset for 9 weeks. Go and put an early Facebook ad and see how people react. We did that in innovation, and so we created a bunch of brands from scratch. And at the time, I was working on ice cream, and I got to literally come up with 2 new ice cream brands from scratch. Kind of a dream job. Until Hellman's, but before that. And we built this incredible brand called Culture Republic, and it was all about probiotic ice cream in 2017, 2018. It was sustainable. It was the best ice cream I had ever developed, and it was still probiotic, and the calorie profile was great. It had macros. It was like doing all the right nutritional things and did not taste like trash. And for those that have tasted ice cream, which most of you probably have, it's really hard to make better for you ice cream not taste like trash. Because even if you have it once, it probably doesn't sustain you to come back. So we built this incredible probiotic ice cream. And in the end, Unilever wanted it to be cash positive in year 1. And for anyone that's in the startup space or just as smart, you're not cash positive in year 1 or year 2. Probably year 3. The average startup is not cash positive until like 3.5 years in. And so our beautiful little ice cream brand was kind of never given a chance. And when you have the world of Ben & Jerry's and Breyers over here doing $2 billion and your little $4 million brand, of course it's not going to compete. So in the end, we ended up discontinuing it, and it was a failure of sorts, but I got to learn what it was like to be a startup without leaving my company. And that was a really cool thing to do. So that was the story that comes to mind. And it was really good. And I still have my sweatshirt that says Culture Republic. And it's like vintage, and no one knows what it means, but I love it.
What were some of the flavors?
Oh my gosh, the espresso chip was great. Actually, it was cold brew, because we were really ahead of our time is what I think happened. This was right as cold brew was popping. And we ended up rebranding it to espresso because espresso had higher awareness, but it was really cold chip. And it was fantastic. We also had a pistachio cream. We had a matcha flavor, again, ahead of its time. And then chocolate cherry was my personal favorite. But I started running half marathons because I did ice cream innovation for a living for 4 years. And I worked on a brand called Talenti, which is the clear jar gelato. And that innovation cycle was, I had to run full marathons for that. Because that is about, more calories than I can talk about.
It's very delicious, though. Any other questions?
So I'm going to piggyback on this siracha bet.
Spicy mayo.
Yeah, absolutely. So America is going through a deep demographic landscape shift. What is the role of cultural intelligence and inclusive marketing at Unilever?
It's everywhere. I mean, from social listening to caulking and going out into every community in America that we can humanly get to understanding digital trends, to talking to our customers about trends in different regionalities and flavors that come through, all of the above. We are constantly asking for feedback about how America is shifting and how we can deliver the best products, the best communication, and then going back to purpose. How does purpose resonate with different people? Food waste is actually a theme that resonates pretty universally, but how you deliver the right recipe on food waste is actually very different. And even, in America, growing up in Wisconsin, what I want to eat is very, very different than even I eat when I live in New York. So I think there's so many ways to slice and dice the differences in America right now, and I think it's important that all marketers are listening. One massive benefit we have to all this data is there's no absence of information, and I think we can use that to our benefit when it comes to questions like that and making sure we actually want to understand and then provide solutions. And spicy mayo is a great product, and I don't even like spicy because I'm from Wisconsin. People in Wisconsin do not like spicy food.
Anyone else?
Hi. Oh, he's coming. Yeah.
Thank you. You talked about retail innovation and was thinking about the pandemic and then the rise of Instacart and delivery and just pull up and they bring out groceries to your car. How has shelf space diminished and eyeball space on the mobile phone kind of affected your business?
It's changed with COVID and kind of reverted a bit back to some of the pre-COVID behaviors. So of course we would say an Instacart, which is a great partner of ours, has had massive penetration since COVID, and some of those consumers have stayed on. But we still, as a grocery business, I'm talking ice cream and nutrition, we still have very important relationships with brick and mortar retailers. Of course, like you said, they're doing click and collect and pickups, and so we want to make sure we're part of that journey if a consumer wants that. But in the end, having a great relationship with Walmart and Kroger are just critical for me to succeed. And however they're getting that message to their consumer. So changed, but not as much as some of my friends over on the Dove team and the Hair team, which is so much about constant online purchasing. So I have to keep Walmart very happy is the moral of the story. And we have great partners. I mean, our retailers want to learn with us. They want to understand what we're open to do. And, we want to make sure in the end, as I will remain consistent with my theme, the consumer is at the heart of every decision we make. How they shop is a huge part of that decision tree, and we just want to make sure we have the right solutions. And spicy mayo is available online.
Perfect. So with that, thank you so much for sharing with us.
Can I offer my advice before we go?
Yes. Advice and tips for all.
Sorry, I just always like to end with this. So I'm a huge fan of talking about mental health, and I use every platform I can to remind people that the world is in crisis. Someone on your team or around you probably is not well, and just remember to be kind because people have a lot of challenges right now and what they're going through. And I think as leaders, especially in marketing where our job is communication, it's critical that we recognize that people need help and they need kindness, and just to assume the best because someone out there is really hurting. And so I ask everyone here to just do one more pass this week of someone on your team, someone and just know that an extra bit of kindness goes a really long way in a world where mental health is a huge crisis.